Hi, my Mama Faye family, and welcome again to Momafey-HT Live Conversations. And today we're going to get right into going two of my main podcasts, and I want to talk about these episodes. I want to make sure that you have a little bit of an understanding of what we're going to talk about. And today I just dropped the Understanding Cycles by Mama Faye podcast episode. And in this episode, we are dealing with 5 ways that you need to build yourself up while you are in a crisis or you are under attack. And we're going to dive into becoming my other podcast, which is Becoming Me, which we talk about becoming a friend. So I want you to stay tuned to the end. And also afterwards, if you haven't already listened to the podcast, I want you to go over and listen to those 2 podcasts. All right, you ready? Okay, so the first podcast is episode that we did this week, and that is about 5 ways to build. And today I want to talk about one of those ways, which is building yourself up physically. And I go into intellectually, I go into spiritually, and I added 2 other ones that I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but are just as key whenever you are in a crisis or you are under attack. But today we're going to talk about the physical one and how important it is, because a lot of times when we're going through something and are we in a crisis, and I'm talking about crisis that lasts, not just a short-term one, a lot of times we forget about ourselves and about our bodies and how it is impacting us. And so many a times, because of that, then we see other things coming to pass in our lives. And of course, physical affects emotional, affects how we deal with things, because when we physically don't feel well, we're not at our best. But I understand sometimes the crisis is physical. And so, even with that, while you're going through, there are some things that you have to consider while you are in that particular crisis. And as far as physical, it is about paying attention to what we're eating, because a lot of times, we like to go to the ones that make us feel what we feel makes us feel good, and that's usually eating carbs and eating a sugar, and getting high salt things. And also too, sometimes it makes us want to go to other substances and overindulge in other substances, like drinking too much or getting high. And if we do all of those things, a lot of times it's going to impact the crisis that we're in. We're not going to come out to be winners. And I know most of you, we're tired of being in a cycle of attack. And of course, when you're in a crisis, our main thing is we want to come out, but there's a way to come out and still win. And because there are going to be crises in our life, there are going to be attacks, we have to learn a way of being able to still win while we're still under attack. And that's what the whole series is about, actually. And so another thing is our sleep, because a lot of times when we're in a crisis, we're not sleeping. And we got to make sure that we're sleeping. And so I apologize for the delay, and I if that bothers you, I would also tell you to listen to it to pot, because I do post it as an audio, so you can also listen to it on Podbean, and there you can go to Apple, Spotify, iHeart, pretty much anywhere you want to listen to. And then there is the eating. A lot of times with eating, that we talked about eating, and then irritability. We have to monitor how we are feeling and how it is impacting us. And that brings me to, this week we heard some really rough news about how some people took their own lives. And a lot of times when that happens, it's because we're not monitoring how we are feeling, how this is making us, the impact that it's having on us. Because people, when it's time to take a break, it is time to take a break. So I want us to make sure that we focus on that. And then also too, in the Becoming Me podcast, I talk about friendship. Y'all know about friends. All of us hopefully have at least one good friend. And in that podcast, I talk about how you need to know the type of friend that you have. Because a lot of times, the type of friend that you have, a lot of times we're trying to make a short term friendship into a long term friendship. And then we get our feelings hurt. And one of the types that I would talk about today, but I deal with more of these types in that podcast. And you might want to go over there and listen to it so you can know what type of friends that you have. And that's going to bring clarity as to if these people are going to be there for the long term or if they are going to be gone when the situation changes. And one of them is transactional friendships. A lot of transactional friendships, it goes like this: you come to my event, I come to your event. You give me a gift, I give you a gift. Why is it like that? If you have a relationship with someone and all you all are doing is, oh, I got to go to their baby shower because they came to mine, that's not a friendship. That's a transactional friendship. And those type of relationships usually don't last because what happens is if one of you do not return the transaction that was made, the relationship ends. And so a lot of times people will get hurt because, why did they not understand that I had something to do and I couldn't make it? Because that relationship is dependent upon each person doing back and forth for each other. So that's just one of the types of relationship friendships that I talk about in Becoming a Friend. And then also, I do in that particular podcast, I also talk to you about being how are you being a good friend or are you being a bad friend? And how do you know that you're being a good friend? And so today I want to uh, talk to you about with being a good friend. One of the things that I talk about is keeping private things private. I think that is one of the biggest things that break up almost every friendship that usually ends up in hurt and ends up broken. And then that is people not being able to keep private things private. If you have a friend and you have a really good relationship with that friend, you have to, and I have to keep the private things private. I don't care how juicy the gossip is. I don't care if you're mad with your friend. I don't even care if you all break up. The private things need to stay private because that person thought enough of you to open up to you. And when someone opens up to you, that means that in 9 times out of 10, they trust you. And don't take that trust, uh, you know, lightly. Because a lot of times when people trust you, and hopefully you return the favor, because I have seen where people feel very confident in coming to you and sharing all of their darkest secrets, and when you share something about yourself that is something that you open up to them, now they run off with your stuff and they make sure they tell, as many people as they can about your stuff. So be careful about that because a lot of times you have a one-way friendship. And I didn't talk about that there, but you have a one-way friendship where people are friendships one way. They will sit there and tell all of their troubles and their trials and their situation, and they can be vulnerable with you. They can open up to you. They can tell you everything, and not feel judged. And then the minute you turn around and you share with them things about your life that you would not share with other people, but you feel like we're in a moment of vulnerability, so I can be vulnerable back. Be careful, because sometimes those friendships are not that type of friendship. So it's very important to know and to understand what type of friendship you are in. And don't feel bad. I think everybody, it may be a few people who have not had to learn it the hard way, and myself included. There have been many a times that I've thought that people were a little bit more of a friend, and it turned out that they were not. Thank God, some of them I kind of felt that that was going on, and follow your gut feeling when you feel like someone may not be as true of a friend as you think that they would be. Check your gut feeling. And with that said, I will share a little bit of my story about a friendship that I had where, the relationship, I thought we were on the same page. And at that particular time in my life, I kept getting messages from other people that this person said this, or this person said that, or it was also things that I know that I only shared with this particular friend. And one day I just, it 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 got to a point where with that particular friend, I was accused of something that I did not do. And I realized then I had to cut off that relationship. And when I cut off that relationship, guess what happened? All of those people that were coming to me with things that were said and coming to me, all of that stopped. And so sometimes when you're getting a lot of things back, maybe private things back about you, or things that other people said you said, and they coming back to you, check one of your friends, because a lot of times it's one of them friends that you think is a really good friend is not being a good friend. And I don't say that you have to. I mean, when I was younger, I really felt like, okay, you cut them off. And that's what I would do. I would just cut them off. Now I'm not as more of a cutoff person as I was. Like, I'm not part of the cancel culture. But what I do say is you set boundaries around that relationship. That may not be the friend that you want to tell your innermost most uh, secrets. That may be the friend, and I talk about this too. That may be the friend that just have to be the fun friend. Where you go out and you have fun, and that's it. You don't divulge any information about yourself, about your family, or about other people. This is the fun friend that you all go out, you have a good time, and that's it. So that's what is really about with that episode, and I encourage you to go and listen to that episode. And I want to all encourage you all to become a part of the Becoming Me process. The reason why I have this process put it together is for people who are starting things and somehow you feel like you're not being able to get things completed. You start something and then you drop it. You start something else, then you drop it. So I came up with the Becoming Me goal process, and that's what Becoming Me is all about. But I'm going through all the different types of becoming. But the whole goal of this and the whole mission of this is for you to start doing goal setting, because goal setting helps you to complete things that you really want to complete in your life. And what you do is you write them down. And in this one, I'm excited because I have a friendship packet. And in that friendship packet, I actually wrote a completed page of my Becoming Me Goals journal. And this one is the one for friends. So I start you off with a goal setting for friendship. And so in that packet, and then it also has like a friendship checklist in there, and you can get that for free. It's just a discount code. It only costs $1.99. So, but I had to put a price on it in order to be able to track it so that you could get it for free. And you'll get that discount code, and you can go to my website at MOMAFEY-HT.com, and you put in that discount code, and you will actually be able to get it for free. And if you subscribe to the Substack, which has the whole Mama Faye Becoming Me process, and I have a newsletter that goes along with it, you will also get a free goals journal. And I want to go back to the Understanding Cycles podcast. When you subscribe to that one, you actually get my free book, which is about um, because it's about journaling. Well, that one is about your journey, and it's about breaking cycles in your journey. That's not the title of it, but that's what the book is about. And it goes into all of the different cycles that we go through in our lives. Because if you haven't figured it out by now, you actually go through cycles in your life. And so that particular book is about those cycles, and to help you to recognize cycles in your life, and then what happens, you can break certain cycles, and also the ones that are coming, because there are certain cycles that as we get older, I don't care who you are, you're going to hit one of those cycles. One of them is, for women, one is for men, one is when we retire, one is for when we age. And I talk about how, each one in the age. I also talk about generational cycles and how each generation impacts that generation. And I also noticed that how when you have certain technology or certain inventions that happens in certain generation, how it impacts their thinking. And so AI is going to impact the thinking of this generation in a way that our other generations were not impacted. So I want to encourage you to go and to subscribe to those, because you get those for free. And you get to be able to follow my process, and you get these episodes. And finally, if you are really, really committed and you want to support what I'm doing, you can become a part of the Becomers Club. And that is a yearly subscription, and you pay one time once a year, and you get access to a private page, and you also have access to a one-on-one coaching. So I want to encourage you to do that. And today, I want to encourage any of you who are in a crisis right now, that I want to encourage you. I want to just talk about how Jesus was in a crisis. And I know a lot of times we don't hear this particular scripture like that, but it was right when he was in the garden and he was facing going to the cross. And in that particular part of his journey to the cross, Jesus had to pray 3 times. And in him praying those 3 times, Jesus said, um, he was struggling with God's will versus his will, because he had only been, he was in the prime of his life. He was in his 30s. And so, of course, he had done now made friends, he got family. And so he was, on this, knew that this was his time. But the thing is that when he allowed God to take over, and he allowed him to be the one that that gets in the driver's seat in that crisis, then there's something that says in there that many people pass by. it says the angels came and strengthened him. And so, if you are in a crisis today, and a lot of times why I brought this about being under attack in the understanding cycles, the reason why I brought it was because so many times everything looked like it's coming at you at once. Because a lot of times when I heard of someone who just had a really bad accident, and because of that accident, it's going to disrupt their lives. And when you're in something like that, where a crisis hit you unexpectedly, it is so important that you follow a process. There's a process that you follow. But when you just can't pull it all together, when it just not all coming together, and everything is like crazy, we heard about two incidents of domestic violence where the person took other people's lives and took their own lives, and then the impact of what that is going to mean to the family who is still here. That is the time when the angels got to come, and now we know Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit has to come and strengthen you, has to be the one that gives you the strength to be able to get through that process and to show you all of these areas that I talked about. I talk about them 5 areas. The Holy Spirit has to show you how to navigate those 5 areas. And that is your physical, that's your mental, that's your intellectual, and that is also the financial. And those are different key areas where the you're going to need that guidance. And so, if I encourage you, if you haven't started today, to come in and listen to those different podcast, because it's there to help walk you through how to have that strategy that Nehemiah had. And the other one is to help you to goal set. So I want to thank you today for those of you that listen, for those of you that support me. I thank you, and I will see you next time. All right.